It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue over in Council Bluffs, in that same little business district that I spend much of my summertime. AMC Theater 17, Quaker Steak and Lube, the casinos, the Mid-America Center, all that fun stuff over there in Council Bluffs. 24th Avenue, the bridge with all the crap on it that we spent a ton of money. And
come on, the casinos paid for that. I spent a ton of money.
And I appreciate your Nebraska dollars. This is the front stretch. We were supposed to be live this morning, but NASCAR earlier this year announced that Charlotte, the race for what was supposed to be last night, the Bank of America 500, they moved it to Sunday. So it's going to be a Sunday afternoon show, so we are recorded. And keep that in mind. I know everything's all different, but that's the only change. I mean, typically this was the only Saturday night race in the chase, but they've had trouble getting ratings on Saturday nights. They've had trouble getting butts and seats on Saturday nights. Their Sunday race was much better. The 600's always been better, ratings-wise and ticket sales-wise. So they made a request to NASCAR. NASCAR checked it all out and said, "Yep, we can handle it." So midway through the season, they switched it up.
And we had a little switch up on our end. Normally we try to record on Thursdays so we get all the NASCAR news from Tuesday and Wednesday, but we are in the studio on Tuesday this week. So there might be some late-breaking news after the Dover race. We did some checking. We tried to research, but we came up with nothing, out of the ordinary yet. So hopefully there won't be.
And unfortunately, penalty day seems to be Wednesdays this time. So we haven't heard of any penalties at the time of recording, but if we hear of anything, the best place to find it, as always, is on our Facebook page. And typically we'll chime in on our personal accounts and give our thoughts on anything after the show's been recorded.
Yeah, or you can check, obviously, the front book page there on Facebook. And one thing we need to start, it should be front book. Yeah, there we go. It's something like that.
Somebody put the horse in front of the carriage, or the carriage in front of the horse.
Yeah, well, my eyes are too big for my head sometimes.
All right, today's show, turn number 1, we're going to recap Dover, talk about the 4 drivers that were eliminated from the playoffs. We'll also kind of get some of the news that may be coming out of Dover. And round number 1. Turn number 2, we're going to talk with Stan Cisar. He's on his way over to recap the 2017 points championship that was at Eagle Raceway for their weekly points. And if we have time, we'll cover the Sprint Series of Nebraska points. Turn number 3, we will recap some of the news that has happened so far in the week of racing. It's been a very difficult week for the United States, for society with what happened in Vegas, for racing fans with losing Robert Yates, and for rock and roll fans losing Tom Petty. So there's just been a lot of people that have. It's been a tough week for a lot of people. We'll cover some of those news and kind of the impact that Robert Yates had on NASCAR in Turn 3.
Well, with the Vegas deal, that actually had a racing impact. On a side note, I believe it was the Bakersfield promoter whose daughter was one of the victims of that shooting. So, thoughts go out to the people out in Bakersfield and what they got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's some terrible news. And in turn number 4, we'll get you set for today's Bank of America 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll talk about our thoughts on the next 3 races. And we can kind of transition from here. Really, round number 1 for a majority of the drivers that were in the top 10 are gonna. It's all about survival. You've proven that you've got a fast enough car to be in the top 10 on a consistent basis. You've proven that you've got the strength of engine and aerodynamics. You've got a strong team. Just don't beat yourself. That's basically the theme for round 1 of the playoffs, right?
Pretty much. You've still got a gremlin that can get you a $5 part here or there, like what took JJ out the year before last. But yeah, you can't make a mistake. A pit road penalty here, or like Chase Elliott not wanting to move out of his favorite line for the last 100 laps of the race. If he'd have just moved up and he'd have stayed in front of Kyle Busch. But that didn't happen, but he moved on. So it wasn't a life or death deal like it was for the 4 guys that are no longer in the chase.
Yeah, and talk about Kurt Busch and that 41 team very well should have moved on, but they had issues at New Hampshire that put them behind the 8 ball, and they were really flat after at Dover and just weren't able to really get that car going and recover the points that they lost after that accident in New Hampshire.
More than likely, they pretty much knew they had to win, and that's a lot of pressure. So I just don't think they reacted well to that. If they'd have had, all we got to do is stay in the top 15 to move on, which that's what everybody was talking about on the radios the whole race. Hey, we've got to stay ahead of this guy. We've got to stay ahead of this guy. Jamie Mack had a lousy qualifying effort, didn't make it into the second round of qualifying. So he's starting, 25th and on back type deal. That was a lot of pressure on him because, back, when you start in the back sometimes, when you're racing with squirrels, that's when you get your nuts cracked. That's
right.
An old saying around dirt track racing. Well, it works with NASCAR too, especially if you watch like the Xfinity race. There was a big, not a huge crash amount of cars, but it took out one of the chase people, real early in the race with Brendan Jones driving the 33 car. So that could have happened in the Cup race too if you're starting in the back.
The 12 drivers that moved on to the next round, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, and Kyle Larson all had locked themselves into the round of 12 before the race at Dover. Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Matt Kenseth, Jamie McMurray, and Ricky Stenhouse all moved on to the round of 12. Or excuse me, the next round for the next round of the playoffs.
And I personally think for the most part, you can just take those top 8 and just go ahead and move them right on up. I just think that's the way it's going to go.
Drivers that were eliminated, Austin Dillon, Casey Kane, Kurt Busch, and Ryan Newman. Something that was kind of interesting that came out of that was the post-race conversation that Jeff Gordon apparently said something to Ryan Newman, and you can't really catch what Jeff says. You only hear what Ryan repeated, and it was basically of, hey, keep an eye on what's going on with the leaders. And I was really shocked that Jeff Gordon said something like that. I mean, any driver that has competed at this high of a level, and somebody that's a championship driver like Jeff Gordon, should understand that Ryan is going to hang on until that checkered flag waves, because you never know when a tire's going to blow and a caution's going to come out, everything's going to get re-racked. He's just supposed to let the leaders go by. I mean, I felt that was really out of line.
Yeah, I believe you. I believe you're correct there. I don't know what Gordon was thinking. That's definitely not his place to make that call. Now, granted, he's a little bit of a homer with his 24 car was the one leading at that point.
Yep.
But yeah.
It wasn't Ryan Newman's fault why Chase Elliott gave up that lead.
Oh, no, Chase Elliott's fault, and he admitted that. He let that one get away because he didn't change his line. All he had to do was go around him and move up to the high line, and boom, he's gone.
You got to imagine that, listen to that radio, that the spotter and the crew chief were talking about where Kyle Busch was finding all that speed. Now, because we're not the driver of that car, maybe Chase already tried it before the camera was on him for I don't know how many laps, and he tried it out and just wasn't able to make it work, so he knew that was a moot point, and Kyle was able to make his car work on the bottom side too if he had to get by cars. So maybe Chase just kind of thought there's no point in me going up there because then Kyle's just going to go down low, but you got to give it a shot. I mean, I'm no driver.
When the guy's closing, when the guy came from, 5 seconds back or something in 40 laps, obviously he's going faster than you, so you need to try and block him.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do to stay in front of him, and if that's go up and try and take his line away and make him guess, is Chase going to go low this time, or is he going to go high into one?
Yeah.
Because I got to go the other way. Well, every once in a while they miss guess, and then they just follow him through the corner. Well, they can't make no ground if you're in his line. So
and honestly, as Chase Elliott, you got to take a line from it. I truly do believe that Mark Martin was one of the nicest drivers that has ever driven in this series. And because of that, he never won a championship. You have got to have a chrome horn. And Dover was a classic example. He messed around with Ryan Newman in those lap cars for, 5-6 laps? A lap, maybe 2 at Dover, and you put the horn to him and move him. But consequences be damned.
Well,
your first win is on the line. You got to move him if he won't get out of your way. And we talked about it last weekend before the race. Ryan Newman is one of the toughest guys to get around. You're going to have to move him.
Yeah, but he had plenty of room. He could have gone to the high line and driven around him. There was, now whether his car was total junk up there, which it could have been, then, he was trying to stay where he thought, and he and his crew chief and spotter and everybody thought he was fastest.
Yeah.
But, the lap traffic, to me, it didn't look like he got, close enough to anybody for it really to hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm not driving the car, so I don't know how the air is affecting the car when you're 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths back. But, he knows he let it get away. He knows he made a mistake, and hopefully he won't make it again.
When all was said and done, Kyle Busch gets the win. Chase Elliott comes home in second. Jimmy Johnson third. Martin Truex Jr. fourth. Kyle Larson rounds out the top 5. Clint Boyer, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Daniel Suarez, Jamie McMurray, and Brad Keselowski round out your top 10. How about Dale Earnhardt Jr.? That's been the first time in a long time we've listed a top 10 finish.
Long time coming, and I don't know if maybe he took some of the stuff that people were telling him last week to worry about his race car and stay out of politics to heart.
Maybe. Denny Hamlin had a bad day, lost an axle, 374 laps he completed, finished 35th on the day. He was the worst of the playoff finishers. Ryan Blaney finishes 23rd. Looks like he was 3 laps down. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finishes 19th. Kevin Harvick 17th, Austin Dillon 16th, and that's outside. That's the only drivers in the playoffs that are outside of your top 15. So let's see. Brad Keselowski won stage number 1. Looked like he had a pretty fast car most of the day. Kyle Larson gets stage number 2, and the biggest points getter for the day is Kyle Busch, your race winner, 56 points on the day. Finished second in stage 1, fourth in stage 2, and then got the race win, leading only 30 laps. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, lap leader, but no bonus points awarded for that anymore. He had 138 laps led on the day. That's the results from Dover. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. Stan Cisar, the voice of the Speedway, will recap the 2017 points championship. Who won the big ones at Eagle Raceway and for the Sprint Series in Nebraska? We'll be back here on the
Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race is coming. Here's some reasons to be there. Reason number 88. It's Dale Jr.'s last Kansas NASCAR Cup race. We can all lift a cold one to that. Reason number 78. Martin Truex Jr. Because underdog stories make the playoffs even better. Did I mention it's the playoffs? The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
This week's young gun on the front stretch is 22-year-old Chris Littleman LaFoy. Chris was inspired to start racing dirt tracks after watching his father Dennis and his cousin Mike, the Wahoo Albertson, race throughout the Midwest. Chris started his racing career about 3 years ago behind the wheel of a go-kart. This season, he made the switch to a sport compact where he competed weekly at Crawford County Speedway and Shelby County Speedway. Chris picked up his first victory at CCS, helping him finish 5th in the points championship. 7 top 5 finishes at Shelby County Speedway landed him a 3rd place finish in their points championship. He hopes to build off of his rookie year success in 2018 with a track championship, and someday he hopes to win a national title in every class he competes in. Chris's racing season has come to a close as he prepares his D&J Auto Repair, Pomeroy Home Renovations, and Cody's Express number 55 Sport Compact for the 2018 season. This week's Young Gun on the front stretch has been presented by Craig Kelly of Sarah Kelly and Sewell, personal injury attorneys.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 2, it's time to sit down with the voice of the Speedway and pretty much third co-host of the show. Especially during race season. Stan Cisar joining us. We always do appreciate it. I try to tell you thank you as much as I can because you get up Sunday mornings after a long night, Saturday night at Eagle or at any given dirt track, and It's a little tough to get up every Sunday morning and come join us for the show, but you do a good job of it.
Sometimes it's a little blurry on Sunday morning.
And I think if Dan really wanted to say thank you, he could probably wrap his new pickup.
Yeah, there you go.
I've got plans. I think my pickup is just a little bit too silvery. I'd like to add some darkness to it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Some black. But all right, so let's talk about the point standings. Let's go over some of the champions.
All in all, a pretty good year, in every class, and we'll kind of, I guess, maybe do a rundown class by class a little bit, talk about some of the competition and the end results and who some of the winners were. But
can you pull that mic just a little bit closer down to you?
Sure.
You don't have to get up to it. Can you bring it down to you a little bit more? That might be a little more comfortable for you.
Okay.
There you go.
And the fights and all that stuff that happened.
Well, there was a couple, wasn't there?
I say it isn't so. Top 10 in the points, kicking things off the Mountain Dew Kickstart Sport Compact Division. That's the front-wheel drive, kind of an entry-level class, 4-cylinder cars. Danny Morris picking up the 10th spot in the point standings. Kasha Hall finishing 9th. Justin Callender finishing 8th. Michelle Nicholson in the 7th spot. And R.J. Moss out of Wilbur, Nebraska. We kid a lot. R.J. will bring us some kolaches, and the Wilbur is the Czech festival,
capital of the state.
Yeah, exactly. And some good eating going on up there in the announcing booth sometimes. But gets us up to the top 5. Tyler Moshek, another good Bohemian name. Stephen Oakes out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Tim Horsham, we kid Tim, he's probably the oldest guy in the class, and he's racing with guys that are less than half his age, but he's still out there. He's been around a long time and always manages to pick up an 8-feature win before the season ends.
And thank the good Lords we got Tim around, because wasn't he the one that helped weld the guardrail back together during the Race Saver Nationals?
Exactly, and fixed the steps when we go down onto the track. But I tell you, and then. The way the points, there's a story behind the story in this deal. Sean Hine finishes in the runner-up spot, and your points champion for 2017 is Tommy Etherton, car number 24T. Now, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story, 16 different nights of racing, a lot of different winners. One guy didn't race regularly. He was an out-of-towner, but he did race quite often and almost regularly, let's just say. Dylan Richards picked up the most wins on the season. He's out of Beatrice, and I believe Dylan making a good run at that IMCA National Championship in Sport Compact Division. He had 5 feature wins on the season. Cole Creco and Larry Cronin both had 3 feature wins on the year. Cole Creco was a 2-time and defending champion, and he was the points leader going into the last night of racing. Well, lo and behold, after the second time Larry Cronin's car got claimed after an A-feature win, he refused the claim. There was an altercation in the pit area afterwards, and the entire Cronin family, which included Cole Creco, because he is married to Erica Cronin, who's now Erica Creco, and they are all lost their points and everything for the entire season. Plus, they have got a suspension from IMCA in the works, and it's really a shame.
Yep.
Cole's a good racer, and I tell you what, and those guys got those Cavaliers figured out. Yeah, the engines run good, and a lot of guys' engines run good, but it's not all the engine. But you get a good car, but you know the rules going in. That car is subject to claim, and didn't want to let it go, so he refused the claim. And like I said, then there were some harsh feelings and some things that happened down in the pit area. Unfortunately, a fall guy that didn't have anything to do with the incident, or was just trying to calm things down there, ended up getting the worst end of the deal before it was all over with.
Right.
But they're out, and that pretty much handed the points title to the guy that was going to be the runner-up, and that's Tommy Etherton.
And we have extended an offer to Larry Cronin to come on the show and kind of give his side of it. I'd like to understand why he decided to not accept the claim 2 times in a row, because that's a steep penalty for a sport compact driver.
Well, especially it's an entry-level class.
Yeah.
I think the first deal he got was like a 90-day suspension, and
probably a pretty hefty fine with that.
He served.
I want to say it was 500.
He served the. I think it was 1,000.
Was it 1,000?
He served the first I want to say the first maybe month and a half of that deal, and man just decided he was itching to get back behind the wheel, so he paid the fine. If you're paying even if it's a $500 to $1,000 fine in a class that pays $60 to the A feature winner,
right?
It shows that he loves to race. Mm-hmm. He had a great car whenever he came out with that black number 70 car. It's been a good car. You got a lot of time and effort, a lot of work into those things, mm-hmm. and you hate to let them go. I mean, this has been going on since the 60s when they started the old Bronco division at Playland Speedway. And I know Paul Zidane, who was the hitter over there at the time, he lost 3 cars in a season in the same deal. At that time, the claim was on the entire car. And what one of the reasons for that is it encouraged new people to get into the sport,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the money couldn't beat you.
Yeah.
Was what they were trying after, which proved wrong with the modifieds.
I would love to hear Larry's side of the story because I haven't really, and there's a lot of mudslinging going on in social media and everything like that, which sometimes gets a little bit out of hand. So you just got to kind of it's a shame because the entire that was their passion. They lived to race in the Sport Compact class at Eagle Raceway, and now all of a sudden they're gone, and going along with them is Cole Creco, who he had started running in the hobby. He got himself a hobby stock and had started running the hobby stock division. Was really looking forward to seeing him move up in class to see how he could hang.
Yeah.
But other winners in the class. And we talked about Dylan Richards with 5, Cole Creco and Larry Cronin both with 3. Tim Horsham got a win. Melissa Cronin, Erica Creco got a win. Spencer Pavey the third, and Zach Bolmeyer. We had 8 different winners out of 16 nights of racing in the Sport Compact division.
Competitive division.
Very competitive division.
Loved watching him from the infield. Moving on to the hobby stocks.
Got a new champion for 2017 coming out of Columbus, Nebraska, Jeff Ware, car number 83. And there were times during the year where Jeff was on a roll, and he won a few in a row there. But boy, mid to late, Roy Armstrong came on very strong.
Yeah.
And he was the guy to beat. And in order to get that win, we had 6 different winners out of the 16 nights of racing. And if it wasn't for Roy, we'd have probably had 9 or 10 because somebody looks like they're going to pick up their first ever feature win down at Eagle Raceway, and 1-2 laps to go. Roy'd be running in second. He'd run them down and make the pass before the final checkered flag and steal the win back away from him. But top 10 in points, Cody Liefeld holding down the 10th spot, 24X. Tim LaPointe, the Batman, comes home in the 9th spot. Kenny Roberts, one of those guys that looked like he was on his way to a feature win one night, finishes 8th. The Bus, Justin Busboom, in 7th. Dave Carter is 6th. Brett Sadhoff is your top 5. Jeff Watts is 4th in car number 66. Tyler Sadhoff in the 16T. Roy Armstrong finishes 2nd this year, and this was one that came right down the final night. Roy couldn't do any better than, and every car that Jeff passed on his way up there. At one time, Roy had passed enough cars to get back into the points lead, and Jeff picked him off before the end of the final checkered flag on the final night, and 587 to 583, 4 points the difference. And Jeff Ware picks up his first Eagle Hobby Stock Track Championship. As I said, 6 different winners out of 16 nights. Roy Armstrong won 7 of them. Wow. Jeff Ware won 5 of them. Brett Sadhoff, Alan Shively, Albert Keeney, and Dave Carter all picked up a single win.
That 4 points, does that equate to just 2 positions on the track all year?
That's
or 4?
4 positions.
1 point per position.
The features
out of 16 races.
Yeah, out of 16 races, coming down to 4 positions.
I'm curious how Roy Armstrong won 7 races but not the championship.
He had a couple fallouts. He had a flat tire. One time he was involved in an incident and had to get towed off. But boy, when he finished the race, he was a pretty tough customer. And
Absolutely,
checked the records.
And he's been the dominant factor. And I'm kind of interested. I'm hoping that Adam comes back down and runs the Eagle again next year because up until Jeff Ware this year, the only competition that Roy had was his son Adam. And Adam went from the hobby stocks into sport mods into full-blown A mods. He's back down to where he says he had the most fun ever. And he's got a new family and he's devoting a little time to them, and he don't want to get caught up in the race in the mods and sport mod type deal. So he's settled onto that hobby stock division. Not only is he a great driver, he works for Jet Racing, Johnny Sadoff's shop down there, and he's the builder of hobby stock. So he's basically building against most of his building a lot of his competition down there. He's a great craftsman, and they built some great cars down there in that hobby stock deal. And so the Jet cars are kind of sought after, and they're rolling them out the door pretty quick, I heard. So
okay, this looks like Dad's car. We'll move this one bar right here.
Let's move on to the IMCA Sport Mods.
Once again, very competitive as it usually always is. 7 different features and only 15 nights of racing for the Sport Mods. Top 10, Scott Bivens, the Spider-Man, comes home in the 10th spot. Guy that we talked about, I believe he's been on or is going to be on your Young Guns program, Cole Wayman, coming home in the 9th position, and Cole picking up an A feature win in his rookie season, first full year. Matt Andrews is in the 8th spot. Mary Lenz, who's been around for quite a number of years, but she really, really came on strong. Probably her best season, I want to say, in a long time, in the 7th spot. Gary Sadoff, perennial champion in this class, dropping down to 6th. Another youngster that's really improved a lot, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, Ari Scouten, your top 5. And another youngster, we call him a youngster, picked up 2 feature wins on the year, Gunnar Pike. And Pike coming out of the go-karts into that sport mod class, and he's really come into his own. Derek Hall, who's beat around this class for quite a number of years, got a new car this year and some good sponsorship behind him, and he comes home in the 3rd spot. Sean Harker's, we always kid about it, Shark Week, boy, but he won the most features this year, won the battles but didn't win the war. It was Trent Roth out of Columbus, Nebraska, picking up the championship. And that's another one that went down to the last night, but it was actually 17 points. Sean Harker did have an outside chance, but 7 different features out of 15 nights. Harker won 5 of them. Trent Roth won 2. Gunnar Pike won 2. Lance Borgman won 2. Cole Wayman picking up a win. Joe Fayen picking up a win, along with Matt Andrews. So.
With Trent Roth, is that any relation? You said he was out of Columbus. Is he part of the Roth family out of the Norfolk area?
Most certainly, yep.
Yep. Are they a little thick in racing too?
It goes back to grandfather.
Yeah, they're
back
like
Reggie.
They're like the Koziski clan.
Reggie was a staple back in the Sunset Speedway days, and then his son raced, who was Trent and Anthony's father, and they build and Travis Roth, and they build the Razor chassis cars, and up there and. Like I said,
I always enjoyed these guys. They especially with the hobby stocks. Also, a lot of times when I got to see these guys get out of the cars working on the pit reporting at Eagle, you're talking about huge smiles on these guys' faces. They had a heck of a time, and Jeff was one of them, and Roy Armstrong, and Sean Harker, and Trent, and these guys that Ari and Gunnar, whenever they got a top 3 finish and they went to Tech, they get out just high-fiving, shaking hands, giving hugs, having a good time. There was rarely a crossword.
Because that's how tough the competition is down there at Eagle, and if you happen to pick up a win down there, or even make like you said, make the Tech area, you had to drive your rear end off. I'd be politically correct there, but just to get there, and the interesting thing was those guys, they wanted really bad to have a night to where Anthony and Trent both won the feature on the same night, and it seemed like Anthony would win one week, and then something would happen to him the following week. Trent would win. Trent would have a problem. Anthony would win, and they could never both win on the same night to get the. But both of them had very successful seasons. Trent picking up the championship.
Well, let's talk about Anthony Roth in that modified class.
In the modified, one more thing, I guess I would be remiss going back to the Icebreaker. The Sport Modifieds did race, and as we mentioned, Adam Armstrong was in that Sport Modified division at the beginning of the year. He picked up the win at the Icebreaker over a very tough field of cars. I believe we had close to 60 Sport Mods that night for the Icebreaker, and Adam Armstrong did pick up the win. Wow. Very shortly after that, he sold that car and took some time off, and then got back into the hobby stock division. Modifieds, what can you say about the Modifieds down there? 8 different features winners out of 16 nights, and you look at the list in that, it's the who's who in modified racing. Top 10, Nate Thompson, first top top 10 finish for him. Bob Rusinger coming home in the 9th spot. The Wolfman, Justin Wolf, a lot of good runs this year, finished in the 8th spot. And he was kind of like you talked about. He was either up in the top 2 or 3, or he was going off on the hook, Brandon Spandrew, who had a great year, his first full year, I believe, in the modified division. Perennial champion Johnny Sadoff finishing 6th. Your top 5, Bob Zobek, car number 5S. Rick Gropp, and you're talking about Rick Gropp. Here's a guy that's been around, I think, since they opened Eagle, and had a very good year this year, coming home in the 4th spot. Anthony Roth finishing in the 3rd position, and Roth had an outside chance to win going into that final points night. And up at the top of the heap, Chad Anderson coming home in the 2nd spot, and a guy that's been trying for a lot of years, and he finally got the job done this year. The hitman Shane Hyatt picks up his first ever points championship.
Very emotional win for him. His whole team was excited and well-deserved. Like you said, they've been trying for years to pick up that win, and they finally were able to put a full season together.
And they've been in the hunt going into the final points night, I believe, maybe 3 out of the last 4 years, and just never could close the deal. But this year they got it done. 8 different feature winners out of 16 nights. Dustin Anderson, who didn't race for points, but was there almost weekly there toward the end of the season, he picked up 4 feature wins. 2 wins for Anthony Roth, 2 wins for Chad Anderson, 2 wins for Johnny Sadoff, 2 wins for Clint Holman, 2 wins for Shane Hyatt, and a win for Bob Zobek, and also Jordan Grabowski when he dropped in one Saturday night. He picked up an 8-feature win. So, you talk about that modified division, Eagle Raceway. It's arguably one of the toughest weekly deals in the country. And at the icebreaker at the beginning of the year was Jesse Sobbing coming home a winner.
Wow.
When he was still in the modified.
I wanted to go back and give it a little kudos to Johnny the Jet. You talked about him picking up 2 feature wins on the year, just when you thought he was getting a little bit too old, maybe time to hang up the steering wheel. Maybe those Jet chassis were starting to slow down. He goes out there and knocks off 2 wins.
Well, you can't ever count the Jet out, and like I said, me and Johnny go back a lot of years, and we always have lots to talk about whenever we're in that winner's circle interview.
All right, the mighty, the big night, the big features of the night, the big sprints, Savers coming home with that championship.
This year we averaged over 30 cars weekly. 5 years ago, when they started this division, I think we started with maybe 16 cars on our first night, and worked our way up into this deal here, and we had, I believe, close to 60 different cars that did race during the weekly part of the program. And in this class, a lot of times guys will take a week off. They won't race every week. Some guys don't get caught up in points. Some guys are racing other series, and they'll drop in whenever they get the chance, but the most competitive by far, out of 16 nights of regular weekly action, 12 different A-feature winners out of 16 nights. And that's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
To have, 75% different feature winners. Jason Martin picked up 2 feature wins. Matt Richards, who this was, I think, really a breakout season for Matt. He's been strong, and you talk about the Race Saver division, a development, for guys that have raced in other divisions, and getting them to move into sprint cars that might have never done it if they didn't have the chance to do it a little more affordably. Richards is that guy. When I used to watch Matt race in the modified down there, he loved the top side. And there's some guys that are racing modifieds right now that they're rim riders from way back, and you say to yourself, boy, wouldn't that guy really be good in a sprint car? And I used to say that about Matt Richards quite often. And this year he picked up 2 feature wins. He's made the A feature 4 out of the 5 years of the Race Saver Nationals.
Wow.
And Matt's not a high dollar guy. He's got a machine shop. He builds his own engines. And you talk about young guns. He's got a kid that I think he's just reaching the teenage years.
Cade, right?
Yeah.
Cade.
And he's already been racing a modified. They have a class down in Kansas and Missouri called Kids Mods. And I think you can start down there at like 11 or 12 years of age. And he's already picked up numerous feature wins down there. And
get him started young.
Not only that, is he works on and maintains the cars.
Wow.
He's learning it from ground level up. So Jason Martin with 2, Matt Richards with 2, Mike Boston with 2 feature wins, and Trevor Grossenbacher, the 4 guys that got multiple feature wins. Ron Love picked up a feature win. Doug Lovegrove picked up a win. Toby Chapman, Dan Satriano, Tyler Drucke, Adam Gullion, Ryan King, and Joey Danley, all with single victories. Like I said, 12 feature winners out of 16 nights of racing. Your top 10, Nate Weiler holding down the 10th spot. Gene Ackland was 9th. Mike Boston finishes 8th. Trevor Grossenbacher 7th. Matt Richards 6th. Shaylee Bade 5th. Toby Chapman 4th. Clint Benson, who kind of broke back out, he won the track championship, won the national championship back in 2013, kind of fell into a little slump. Well, Clint got things back together in 2017. He finishes 3rd. Adam Gullion lost on the final night by 2 points to Tyler Drueke, and that was another one of those points battles that was 2 points, which, as Dirk said, 2 positions during the course of 16 nights of racing.
Yeah. And didn't Adam have a pretty firm lead going into the night and then had some issues getting out of the B?
He had engine issues. Actually, I believe it was the previous week or 2 weeks previous to that, to where it really, really hurt him in the points chase. And then, the specials at the Icebreaker, Tyler Drueke picked up the win with the Sprint Series of Nebraska in that deal. Sprint Series Nebraska was in the house for the World of Outlaws. Jack Dover picked up the win that night, and Kyle Larson picked up the World of Outlaws win in a thriller on the final corner of the final lap.
What a race.
I think
what a race.
Fans are still talking about that one.
So is Joey Saldana.
Race Saver Nationals, the race champions, the Jake Ida Memorial Race Champions went to Kevin Ramey out of Fort Worth. The preliminary night features went to Jason Martin out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and Robert Vetter out of Wolf City, Texas. In the hobby stocks, Brett Sadoff picked up a win. Sean Harker won in the Sport Mods, and Dillard Richards won in the Sport Compacts. Race Saver Nationals top 5 looking something like this, and once again the who's who in this sprint car deal. And Nebraskans fared very well. Nebraska and Texas, and Jake Bubach driving a car based out of Texas. But Jake, of course, has some ties in Nebraska, but he's actually from Arvada, Colorado. Martin picked up the win at the Nationals, his first ever. John Carney II comes home in the second spot. Kevin Ramey, Jake Bubach, and Tyler Drueke rounding out the top 5. Season closed with the Nebraska Cup. It had the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series in the house, and don't bet against Kyle Burke when you come to Eagle Raceway. Kyle picked up yet another A-feature win. Corey Zeitner was second. Ben Schaller was third. Tad Pospisil and Jesse Sobbing round out the top 5. The wingless auto racing non-winged sprint cars were in the house, also as part of the Nebraska Cup. Corey Wyatt picked up the win. Terry Richards, who was a former Race Saver driver, he's from Denton, Nebraska. He gave that car a good ride, come home in the runner-up spot. Chris Parkinson, Warren Johnson, and another Nebraskan, Ryan Kitchen, rounding out the top 5. Final race for the Sprint Series of Nebraska, the Nebraska Cup. Matt Richards coming home 5th. Jason Martin was 4th. Jason Danley 3rd. Cody Ledger just about ran out of laps. Thought we might be able to pull one off there. But Tyler Drueke from the pole picked up the win, and congratulations to him on a great season. Another points championship, and picking up the Nebraska Cup. And the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, what can you say about the season? I mean, the racing was awesome all year long.
I was really impressed with the Race Saver Nationals. I mean, the fact that Stu Snyder was able to come out of the D feature. There was Daly?
Michael Day.
Michael Day, thank you.
Out of Texas.
And Stu came on Friday night. Michael came out on Saturday night and made his way up through. Didn't quite make it to the A.
He made it from, I believe, the E to the B.
Yeah, it got so close. So that just goes to show you there was plenty of track available for these guys to make passes on. And if if you talk about there was too many cars, lockdown track, that wasn't the case for the Race Saver Nationals.
Hardly. And Saturday night probably the blackest, slickest, hardest track to race on was Saturday night, and it was black from top to bottom. And as best they tried, they farmed the track a couple times, before that A feature, and it was still pretty dry track, and positions were at a premium that night, and I feel fortunate that we were able to make the show, and like I said, the track conditions this year, everybody complained about the guys from out of town, getting that thing set up. This year, I mean, there were representatives from both coasts, California, Pennsylvania, that were players that made that A feature starting lineup. A lot of drivers from Texas, of course, a lot of drivers from Nebraska, Iowa. I mean, the fastest 27 took that green flag, and what a race they put on. Right. One caution flag. And I think it came in like maybe 25 laps in. The first 25 laps went caution free, and I've got guys that have been around the sprint car deal still talking about that. They couldn't believe what a great job of driving they did, and especially starting 3 wide to be able to run 25 laps in a race that competitive and go caution free.
What about you? Just a couple of more races left on your schedule, right?
Yeah, we're heading to Salina with Cody's 360 car. The final Nebraska 360 race is on the docket, and we just heard next year on Friday night the US 36 Speedway down in Cameron, Missouri, which is basically St. Joe, is going to run the Race Saver division weekly, and they're having a little teaser coming up Saturday night, the 21st. And I'm not for sure if we can commit to that, but I know it's been discussed a little bit, and if at all possible, we're going to try to make it down to that. And that's just kind of a little teaser to let the fans see the Race Saver cars, and I think the interest is going to be huge down in Missouri. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sprint car guys down there, a lot of guys running with the War Series, a lot of guys running with the Warrior region with ASCS down there. But when they get a hold of the quality of racing that's out there a little more affordably from what they've been maybe doing, I think it's going to grow in that area like crazy. And plus, it's going to give the guys within a couple-hour drive, it's going to give everybody a Friday night track to race at. There's also the rumor of a Thursday night track for up to 8 to 10 nights a year, and also on Sunday. And Sunday is going to be a stretch. It's driving clear out to Stewart in western Nebraska, but I think they're going to run Race Savers sanctioned on Sunday nights. So that's going to give the Nebraska guys a little bit better chance in that national championship deal. They're going to get a lot more nights to race, and I believe I don't know for sure what the future is of the touring series, because there's going to be plenty of nights available for guys to race without a tour. So
Stan Cisar, you can catch him at Action Signs. If you need any lettering for your commercial or consumer vehicles, make sure to give Stan a call. Always do appreciate having you in the show, bud.
Sure, anytime.
We'll do it again soon. I'm sure we will. There's always a race to cover.
I'm sure we will.
We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Have you ever watched NASCAR, dirt track, or IndyCar and thought, I could do that? Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the place to put your money where your mouth is. Races fire off every 10 minutes, so what are you waiting for? Get to Joe's Karting on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, next to the Mid-America Center, and find out how easy it is to drive a race car. Each Joe's Karting car is powered by an eco-friendly Honda engine capable of a 14-second lap. That's if you're as good as you think.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Need a reason to be at Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race? Here's some. Reason number 4. Last year's winner, Kevin Harvick. You better believe he's ready to burn it down again this year. Reason number 18, Kyle Busch. Love him or hate him, love him and hate him. But don't ever underestimate him. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, brought to you by Kansas Speedway. Tickets for Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, well, they're available now. You can be a part of history at the Hollywood Casino 400 on Sunday, October 22nd for just $99 or less and $29 for kids. Visit kansasspeedway.com or call 866-460-RACE. Dirk, I'll give you a bit of a news flash today.
Flash!
Until next weekend, that's it. 2 Sundays. We're just getting this Sunday started. We have 2 Sundays to go until the Hollywood Casino 400. If you need any more reasons, I mean, Martin Truex Jr., can he continue his dominance that he's had in the Cup Series? Do you want to say goodbye to Dale one last time in this area? Because I don't believe they're going to be coming anywhere close to Kansas after this. You can't go to Michigan anymore. You can't go to Chicago anymore.
And you can cross your fingers and hope he shows up at Iowa Speedway in an Xfinity car in the next couple of years, which he has made a hint that he would like to do. Mm-hmm. But correct, yeah, he's not going to be anywhere close to here. I mean, you got Talladega after that. They'll have Homestead, obviously. They'll have Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And what is the other one?
Martinsville, Texas,
Martinsville,
Phoenix,
Texas,
and
Phoenix, and Homestead.
Yep.
There you go.
So those are the races that are left. Turn number 3, we're going to talk about some news and notes that have gone across the NASCAR wires. One of them I really wanted to bring up because I think it was the first thing that I thought of when I really got to be thinking about the tragedy that happened in Las Vegas and how this is going to affect NASCAR and how this is going to affect racing. And obviously, when something tragic like that happens at such a large gathering, well, there's like some 22,000 people there, it puts a big target on big events like that. And I've talked about it for a while. If your goal is to kill a lot of people at one time, then doing it at concerts or sporting events is your best opportunity because there's just so many people that go to these. And security was tight. I mean, by the time this airs, this story is going to develop so much. So pardon us if we say anything that's outdated or incorrect. We're going off of what we know for Tuesday. But I want to bring this back around to the NASCAR world. And Dirk, our conversation that we had with Pat Warren, track president at Kansas Speedway, was it last October or was it the October before that?
Year before.
Okay. And we sat down, we had a nice conversation with him on the microphone. And then after it shut off, we just had a very, very nice conversation about the state of NASCAR and how much it took for them to switch the race with Talladega so that they could be the final race in the playoffs and all that stuff. And one of the things he talked about was security at these speedways. Because we talked about the first time I went down there with Buddy Ray, when we took the front stretch down there, security was much more relaxed. And it was after 9/11. So I was really surprised at how easy it was to walk around that track. But then as the years went on, security got much tighter, and it's harder for you and I to just look like we're supposed to be there and walk into an area because we'll get stopped and our passes will get inspected.
But it's kind of coming back full circle because obviously I'd been to races before 9/11, and security for the most part was non-existent. I can remember working a truck race in Daytona, and a couple local guys, Wes McBride, and I don't remember who was with Wes, but they come up and tap me on the shoulder. Hey, what are you doing? I said, no, you guys got garage passes. No, we just walked in right over there. That guard over there is sleeping on his stool. But, so I've seen it to where it went from that to where it went full bore, where the guys outside of Kansas Speedway have mirrors and they're looking underneath your vehicle when you're coming into the infield and stuff like that. And then that all kind of backed off, And I think a lot of that has to do with Homeland Security sending out their bulletins. Hey, we've got, some chatter on this radio or that radio that something's going to happen somewhere this weekend. So whatever's going on, everybody watch yourself,
Well, a part of that conversation that we had with Pat, he opened up my eyes to some of the security measures that they have available to them. And we know the regular ones, heightened armed guards, bomb sniffing assault
dogs.
rifles, and all this stuff that you see, but it's what you don't see that really keeps you safe. And I was really blown away when he talked about they knew everything that was in every single person's car at that speedway because they had a detector that everybody drove by and their vehicle was scanned. And it was an inconspicuous looking trailer. Everybody drove past it. And everything, he said that was one of the safest places to be. The reason why I want to bring that up is because it's easy for us to say, I'm not going to go to a concert anymore. I'm no longer going to go to a sporting event. There's too many people. It's too much of a target. And to bring this around full circle, there are so many security measures that before Vegas happened were in place to keep you safe. A lot of them that you didn't know that were going on at Vegas. It didn't help with how he was able to get around those security measures and kill those innocent people. There are now things that are going to be put into place that will not happen again. That kind of thing will not happen again, at least not for a very long time. So let me put your mind to rest a little bit. I can guarantee you that Kansas Speedway, NASCAR, local officials, national officials, everybody's working together to make sure these final races in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are as safe as they can possibly be.
Oh, and I mean, it's not just NASCAR. It's going to be the NFL.
Right.
At football games. It's going to be all these baseball playoff games that are starting this week. There's a lot going on, a lot of targets as we, and plain and simple, call them when you got 20,000+ people, hanging out in one spot, stuff can get real crazy and a lot of people can get hurt. There's already a bunch of conspiracy theories about the Vegas deal. Yeah,
that's just
imagine that.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to be worried when I go to Kansas Speedway. I'm going to be more worried about getting run over in the garage because I wasn't paying attention than I am about somebody shooting me.
Don't text and walk. It's just the safest thing you could possibly do to help yourself.
You got to take it one step further. Don't think and walk.
Yeah, I've got to just keep my head on a swivel because there's going to be a day where I'm going to
you're going to be a bug on a bumper.
Yeah, it's already almost happened at I-80 Speedway for a World of Outlaws race. Moving on to the big headline for this week: the sad passing of Robert Yates, fighting a cancer for what he's been fighting. They announced it like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I was going to say a year and a half or 2 years. I believe they announced it when they announced his election to the Hall of Fame. I think he was in last year's class. Very innovative guy. I mean,
he was. You're right. He was. Sorry.
And it shows what you used to be able to do in racing. You used to be able to be an engine builder in the engine room, and 5 years later, he was owning his own team and winning titles and winning a lot of races. But he's very innovative in the engine department. It's his son now that's carrying on the business,
Doug, right?
Doug, and he's the one. Puts together all the engines for the Penske boys and all the engines for the Roush boys. They've combined Roush's engine department. And Jack has been an engine guy in a Ford engine since the 60s. He grew up with road racing, did drag racing, all that stuff, and came over to the stock cars in the late 80s. And they combined forces when Robert Yates basically folded his teams up. But, he probably had a champion that died too young when he had Donnie Allison running for him. Died in a helicopter crash there in the early 90s that definitely would have brought home a title sometime in his career.
And the impact that Robert had on NASCAR, and not just NASCAR. A lot of this technology that NASCAR events that they invent bleeds into consumer technology.
Absolutely.
And the engines that they've been able to build are the reasons why you can go so much farther without an oil change, and you can go so much farther on an engine that you talk about. They don't build them like they used to. Well, engines, they sure don't. They build them a lot better these days, and it's because of guys like Robert Yates who developed techniques and pushed the envelope. And we'll say it, he admitted it himself. They flat out cheated several times back in the day because that was one of the best ways to win. And it's no different than today. It's just that NASCAR's catching them.
Correct. Which goes into the news about some of the rule changes that came out this week again. So, But yeah, with Robert. He hasn't been real active in the garage area or even in the engine room for the last several years. He was one of the guys that when he sold his stuff, he pretty much walked away. But I know Doug did depend on him a lot and was kind of like the number one info man when Doug had a question about something. But Doug had been doing it since he was a kid, so.
Rest in peace, Robert, longtime fighter of cancer, and that brings us around to the next topic. It is October and going into November, which are awareness months for cancer. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. November is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. And as a couple of guys who do this show, we're not too far away from our exams that we're going to have to start going every year and making sure we don't have...
Started a long time ago, buddy.
That's a good point. I'm not that far away from it.
Thank God for some of the blood tests and stuff they're coming up with that are very, very accurate and not very invasive.
As we could tell you, just get over any hang-ups, any whatever egotistical things. Just go get tested, because the amazing thing about cancer today is, yes, it's still a deadly disease, but if you catch it soon enough, you've got a much better chance of fighting it and beating it and living a long, full, productive life. But if you sit there and think, well, I'm not going to let some doctor touch my butt, then you're just dooming yourself because you can't get over a hang-up.
That's what you don't have to have that done specifically. I just heard an ad the other day for one of the medical practices here in Omaha that's now doing an MRI.
Yep. By the way, it's called First Scan. It's one of my clients.
There we go.
Yep.
All right, that's exactly what it was. But obviously that's something. It's not really new technology. MRI's been around for a while, but using it in this role is new. So you might want to check with your insurance company to see if they're going to pay for something like that. It's a preventive deal. So normally they cover something like that, but obviously it's going to cost a lot more than the doctor's finger.
Earlier this week, Hendrick Motorsports revealed the 2018 car for Chevy. You can get pictures of that on our Facebook page. We talked about it with Toyota being so dominant right now with their aerodynamics, and Chevy decided they're coming out with a new body style, and they should be able to pick up some speed for 2018. Now we got to look at Ford and say how long until Ford comes out with a new body style.
Well, actually, Chevy took that body style out about 2 months ago. They brought it out and showed everybody the Camaro.
Oh, Hendrick is going to unveil.
Hendrick's going to unveil their version of what they're bringing to NASCAR.
You're right.
Yeah, the Camaro was introduced a while back.
Well, and you kind of wonder if Ford doesn't hold off until 2019 when the next generation car is supposed to hit the speedway. I mean, why release a new body style if everything's going to be changing? You know what I'm saying?
Well, the next generation isn't going to have a whole lot in that spot, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think if NASCAR thinks the bodies are pretty even, they won't allow any changes, is what it amounts to. And I was reading up on their rule changes today, and they're for next year, and they said they're hardly doing anything. Pretty much their aerodynamic stuff's going to stay the same.
Yep.
They did have a little change on the belly pan underneath the radiator and the splitter. But some of the other stuff that people don't realize what goes on, and I often wondered about it, and then when I was able to start teching, was the aerodynamic tubing. They'll use like a wing-shaped piece of tubing instead of a round piece to make A-frames and stuff for the airflow to be better, and try and get downforce off of that A-frame. Some of that stuff is just insane that they do. So they've actually mandated some rules taking some of that away from what the teams are doing, which is actually a nice expense saver too, because to buy that tubing, I understand, is very, very expensive compared to a round piece or a square piece of steel.
You can get information on those 2018 aerodynamic rule adjustments that NASCAR released on our Facebook page also, and then we posted that up there earlier this week. Is there another one I want to get to? Nope. Much, I think that's pretty much. Is there any other news we missed?
Yeah, I wanted to talk. They finally made an actual little bit of writing in the engine package, because we've talked about it before, and I kept saying, well, why aren't they including the heads in this? Well, now they put in it is just the short block that everybody has to use 2 times in the first 26 races. Evidently, if they make the playoffs, they're going to be allowed new engines every week. The backup car has to be unloaded at the track without a motor in it, so that's going to change things. They're going to 1 gear. They've always had 2 since 2004, somewhere around there. They changed the rule and had 2 gears that were very close together. Now they've gone to just 1 gear. Everybody's going to run the same gear at the racetracks, unless it's a track that came with a repave or a major repairs, and they're still going to allow their 2-gear setup. Those were the main thing. Oh, and the other one for speedways, super speedways. When they used to show up, you'd see 2 guys head over to a trailer, and they would get their mandated Penske shocks and springs that they were going to run. And all these springs that were tested were within like 3 pounds of each other for the rear. Now they're going to get to run their own rear springs and shocks. And so that'll be a spot where they could really develop something. They changed the ride height also and got... let's see, with the belly pans, they were moving 160 pounds of downforce. They set off the nose, so that's why they gave them the spring change. And I'm trying to remember there was a downforce number they gave, which said it's going to gain about 30 pounds of downforce on their scale that they look at that allows the cars to flip. So again, another safety deal in that respect.
All right, that's going to do it for turn 3. We'll come back at turn number 4. We'll get you set for the next couple of races in the second round, the round of 12 for the NASCAR playoffs. Who do we think is going to get eliminated? Who's going to do good at the next 3 races? All that. Plus, we'll preview today's race at Charlotte for the Bank of America 500. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Numbers. In NASCAR, numbers represent speed, passion, guts, and glory. Because numbers represent drivers. Numbers like 14, 88, 42, and 78. Numbers that say, that's my driver. Don't mess with my driver. See your number live at Kansas Speedway's first ever playoff elimination race. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400. Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at KansasSpeedway.com.
Fall has arrived, and so have the cold temperatures, but that doesn't mean you have to stay home. Get into Joe's Karting today and enjoy the Metro's largest fully heated indoor karting track. Get your friends together for a white-knuckle experience you can only find at Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Hours of operation, discounts, and lap times can be found online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. Get to Joe's Karting today and discover Council Bluffs' best-kept secret. 23rd Avenue next to Mid-America Center.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. All the action for today's Bank of America 500 is on the big screens at Quaker Steak and Lube. Make sure you don't miss a minute of it. And all that delicious food available, the wings. They were showing some of the cheese curds. That was my absolute favorite on Wednesday nights. When the band took the stage at Bike Night, I got myself a beer and a thing of cheese curds, and it's probably why I have high cholesterol and I'm borderline diabetic.
Borderline dying.
But get on down to Quaker Steak and Lube for all the delicious food, all the great stuff that you can get down there. Let's talk about Charlotte Motor Speedway. Today's it was supposed to be last night. Originally on the schedule, they scheduled it for a Saturday night race like they've done for years. But they talked to NASCAR and said we want to move it to Sunday because we're just not getting the great results on Saturday nights.
And we all got excited because we thought they were going to go to their road course, but that is going to happen for next year.
Right. That'll be interesting to see. Top 10 finishers for this race last year, which, again, I'll stress that it was, Sunday, October 9th. So this was the opening round to round number 2 for the playoffs.
And
Jimmy,
it was a night race and not the day race.
Correct. It was unofficial results Sunday, October 9th.
Really?
Did it get delayed?
Could be, but I was pretty sure they ran a night race in the fall last year.
I am, too.
Does it list a time for the race? Sometimes they'll put a time on there somewhere.
So whatever happened there, it ended up running on Sunday, October 9th, about a year ago. And Jimmy Johnson, shocker, picks up the win with Matt Kenseth coming home second, Casey Kane third, Ryan Newman fourth, and Kyle Larson rounding out your top 5. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, and Jamie Mack rounding out the top 10. Bad days for Joey Logano. Chase Elliott finished 33rd. Ryan Blaney finished 31st. Denny Hamlin finished 30th. And that looks like most of the Chase contenders that finished outside of the top 15. So that was this race last year.
Yeah, it's your usual suspects. Martin Truex in the spring race last year, what did he lead in 392 of 400 laps or something crazy like that. And then JJ comes, and JJ's got 8. I believe it was his 8th win last fall there at Charlotte. So, it's his backyard. He loves the track. Kyle Busch doesn't have a bunch of wins there, but, man, he's led a ton of laps there in his career.
This race last year, Jimmy was the lap leader, led 7 times for 155 laps. Chase Elliott was second with 103 laps. This race earlier in the year, Austin Dillon won the Coca-Cola 600 on a fuel mileage strategy, led 1 time for 2 laps, and picked up the win. Kyle Busch gets second, Mark Truex Jr. third, Matt Kenseth fourth, and Denny Hamlin rounded out your top 5. Kurt Busch, Eric Jones, Kevin Harvick, Ryan Newman, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. finishes out your top 10s. In fact, I think that might have been the last top 10 finish for Dale Earnhardt, except for last weekend at Dover. So there's your top 10 from earlier this year at Charlotte.
Any updates on the Pick'em contest? I know we stretched out the 5-week contest after 3 weeks. The first week, we had 1st through 20th was 3 points. Then it went to 13. I think it's up to 17 or 18 points now between 1st and 20th. Stretched out a little bit. For
the 5-week contest, 2-way tie for the lead, 3-way tie for fourth, or for third. And then it's still pretty clustered up there, up in the top 10. 150 points out for the 11th place. Ford wins, and only 157 for your points leaders, so only a 7-point difference, 11-point difference on back to 12th. Not much of a spread there.
Talladega is going to be a shakeup for that deal. It's
really
going to be crazy.
Is.
And one side note on our last crewman for a day winner, Miss Tara Ackerson.
Yes.
Got a nice big promotion at work.
Congratulations to her.
Correct. Now a sergeant with the Omaha Police Department.
Twice as much, I won't mess with her. First off, it's now 3 times as much. She's a police officer, so I try not to mess with them because, they're tough. She manhandled that tire like it was nobody's business, so I knew then I don't want to mess with her. And now she's a sergeant, so I'm definitely going to be polite and yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Yeah, but she should have some real nice get-out-of-jail-free cards for us.
Absolutely. Looking at your playoff standings before we go into today's race, Jamie McMurray is 7 points behind the cut. Matt Kenseth, 5 points behind the cut. Chase Elliott, 4 points behind, and Ryan Blaney, 2 points behind. So those are the 4 guys that have got to perform well each and every race. You may see Chase Elliott up at the front today. He's performed well at Charlotte for the last couple of races, and he could definitely use a win. It would be exciting to see Matt Kenseth up there. I know he's had a decent year, but not a fulfilling year for him, as he's still looking for a ride for 2018. And Ryan Blaney goes in there too. Picked up a win earlier this year, qualified himself for the playoffs. Has had a good year, but just not a great year.
And Jamie Mack has won there before. He got a win there in his rookie year, I believe. He won the 600.
For today's race, the Bank of America 500 at Charlotte. Green flag is set to wave at about 1:15, so all picks on the NASCARPoolsonline.com are due by 1 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you get your picks in on time, or you will be the sore loser. Today's coverage, by the way, is on NBC. It's on the main network, not the sports channel, so it's on the main network.
And as always, if you have an issue in, just go ahead and send Dan an email. Just make sure it's timestamped by 1 p.m.
That's going to do it for us. We'll be back next weekend to do it all over again. We'll recap the race at Charlotte, who's on the bubble, who's on the hot seat after race number 1 in round number 2 of the playoffs for NASCAR. We're also going to we might sit down with Stan Cisar. We're trying to work on the Hall of Fame stuff. But Stan, your mic's still on. Might as well talk about that.
Yeah, that's coming up on October the 27th down at the Lincoln Firefighters Hall. That's located right near the Speedway Motors Museum of American Speed. And actually, this year, it's for the first time, I think, in as long as I can remember, it's sold out.
Oh, really?
And actually, it's oversold. We were going to induct 7 people, and one of the inductees had like 9 tables full of fans, family, friends that we couldn't accommodate. So he is going to, and we're trying to figure out the least of all the evils, the best way to handle this thing, and they graciously decided to we are going to formally induct him this year, but he will be his induction will be celebrated next year.
Okay.
But he still will be inducted this year officially, and got a great class this year, from road racers to speedway employees to engine builders to drag racers to sprint car mechanics, drivers. It's going to be a great year.
And we'll talk more on that in the coming weeks, so make sure you listen to that for the show. More announcements on coming up. All right, we appreciate everybody joining us. The race today, again, 1 o'clock East Central Time is when all the picks are due for Charlotte. It's on NBC, not NBCSN. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. We'll be back next week and to do it all over again. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Need a reason to be at Kansas Speedway's first playoff elimination race? Here's some. Reason number 4. Last year's winner, Kevin Harvick. You better believe he's ready to burn it down again this year. Reason number 18, Kyle Busch. Love him or hate him, love him and hate him, but don't ever underestimate him. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Hollywood Casino 400, Sunday, October 22nd. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com.
The official watering hole of the Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Any driver will tell you that the key to winning a race is preventive maintenance. Pat at Eccles Heating and Air can make sure your wallet is on the winning side with a preventive care package. Pat will look over your existing unit and make recommendations to make sure you're toasty warm this winter. Drivers trust Pat at the racetrack with their safety, so you know you can trust him with your home heating. Call Pat today at 402-331-1755 and schedule your heater checkup. Eccles Heating and Air.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.